following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both a player's and a GM's perspective. I'm Tony Fanning. With me, as always, are my co-hosts and great friends, Chris Holmes and Stefan Dragonspawn. Chris, how you doing this week?
Fucking Vikings lost yesterday. They got their asses kicked by the 49ers.
I noticed you had some bags under your eyes.
I know. That sucks. And we got punched in the gut earlier in the week for other news that we'll talk about. But other than that, had fun gaming last night, playing Eberron and a little goblin monk that I made, little street urchin. Pretty fun. Bought himself a top hat because I made some gold. Anyway, Stefan, how are you?
I'm good. Not as much gaming as I'd like either. I was supposed to have a game with Matthew Jones last Wednesday, but it got postponed. So maybe this Wednesday, I hope. And still working on my Dragonstar conversion, doing gear and all that other stuff.
Sweet.
Another fellow Genesys fan sent me some other PDFs of stuff that people have done that could help.
I finally found my Dragonstar books.
Oh, cool.
Did you?
Yeah.
So,
they were in one of the yet-to-be-unpacked role-playing boxes because I only have 2 bookshelves. So,
Yeah.
Nice.
How about you, Tony?
Not bad. It was a long week. I started my Eberron campaign at my FLGS on Wednesday with Session 0.
Nice group of characters you got there. Over the wall.
Yeah, we've got a very eclectic, weird group, which I love. 3 of the guys have played with me before because I ran them through a 2.5-year Star Wars Edge of the Empire set right after the Force Awakens game.
Cool.
And those 3 guys were like, when I called them up and said I was going to run this and I needed some players, they were like, yes, please sign me up. I'm like, it's not Genesys. Calm down. It's not Star Wars.
That's right.
But they showed up and they were like, you're not going to run this in Genesys? Please just switch it over to like Terrinoth or something. I'm like, no, guys, we're going to run this 5e because it was the store manager that asked me to run it. So
Gotcha.
And he's one of my players. He's playing the Warforged Druid, so that'll be fun.
Oh, nice.
All right, so this week we did get some bad news, and we wanted to discuss it before we bring our guest on. Get rid of the elephant in the room, and let's talk about it. So FFG released the big, Azzmodeus released the big bomb on FFG more than anything, and that is that they laid off they closed the entire FFI, that's Fantasy Flight Interactive, and laid off a bunch of people from all kinds of departments, including all 4 members of the RPG team. So, yes, a drink for those folks. Cheers. We love you.
Surely.
We hope that you all have the best in your future. And we're going to keep our fingers crossed for the future of Genesys. We have a great community.
Yeah, we do.
And we're gonna lean on each other for a while until we hear from what's going to happen next.
I think they're going to bounce back. They're all people of high caliber talent and stuff, and I'm sure someone eventually will scoop them up and say, yes, come to work for us.
Yep.
Chris and I have both spoken to Sam on separate occasions, and I've never met the others. I've heard nothing but great things about them, and I'm sure our guest can attest to how wonderful people they are. And so,
speaking of which,
so yes, let's shut this down. Jump on over to our main subject.
All right. right. Well, welcome to the our next segment. We call the People of Genesys, and our episode is called Founder Focus. We're focusing in on Darren West. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So, who are you? What's your elevator speech or whatever?
Who is Darren? So I've been gaming.
Why should we hire you?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
You shouldn't. I'm a bad employee. No. I've been gaming about 37 years. I'm sort of the de facto DM and then GM as Genesys started rolling out.
Nice.
In addition to being an avid GM, I've contributed and proofreaded and edited various writers like Christopher Hunt, Chris Witt, Ian Houlihan, Keith Capel, Scott Zumwalt, of course the amazing Phil, Brett, and Kimber at and the gang at Studio 404. That's my shameless plug. Holla. And most people, I know that I wrote Haedra Shard, a Genesys fantasy adventure for the Realms of Terrinoth.
Nice.
So that's who I am.
So 37 years ago, what did you cut those little baby RPG teeth on?
Well, I cut the baby. They were baby teeth. Red Box and Second Ed,
Nice.
Advanced Second Ed. And then, of course, as the 80s started rolling in, we had Cyberpunk and Robotech Sentinels, and then eventually Rifts.
Robotech.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
See?
Cool.
It's a man after my own heart. We started playing the same year. We've both been playing for 37 years.
Right.
So come on now.
82, 83 then?
Yep.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
the 83, the big year.
The basement of my buddy's house. Actually, my buddy just texted me, Scott, and we were like, his daughters want to play D&D, and I'm like, dude, get them. And they love Stranger Things, and they're like, because they watched Stranger Things, saw the kids playing D&D in the basement. They're like, we want to try that, Dad. He texted me, and I'm like, dude, I saw that episode. I thought of us in your damn basement because we were that age. It was great. It's good stuff. It's good. It's so cool.
Yep. So you probably started with Star Wars first, obviously, a few years ago when that first came out, or what?
I actually played the beta Star Wars game with GM Chris Witt. And I am ashamed to say it was jarring. I actually didn't like my first encounter with it. And that's mainly because of where my head was in D20. Not that there's anything wrong with, what do you guys do, shifts?
D-Shift 70.
D-Shift 70.
You can call it D&D.
Yeah, you can tell I've been, but
Other popular D20 systems.
We did have one of our listeners that couldn't understand what we were saying and sent us a message about it, trying to figure out what we were saying.
D-Shift 70. Yeah,
It was funny.
that's greatness. So but eventually it really it took hold. The narrative part of it specifically really took hold, and then I was lucky enough to be one of the first people in Phil Majowski's Fallout Genesys game he made from Star Wars. It's kind of the impetus for Genesys. So, and that pretty much made a full-on believer out of me.
It is definitely it is a different mindset going from D20, those roll pass fail systems to a narrative type system, and I've said it's improved my game in the D20 system as well. Because, you bring some of those storytelling elements and stuff into it. It's great, yeah.
It's definitely improved my game mastering, I'll tell you that, for sure. Elements that I rely on the dice to add in Genesys Star Wars, I now think of those to add them myself based on how the dice come out for where I didn't before. It was like, oh, you failed, move on. No, come on.
Right. You just you missed by one. I'll give you a little bit of a success. Or you make it by 5 or 10 or whatever, you can pull in that kind of stuff. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, like for me, I kind of understand it. And then you have Savage Worlds, which kind of, not narrative, but at least you can almost use margins of success. Like, you succeed with 1-2 raise, or you can do a little bit of determining, you succeeded, but your wild die was a 1, so maybe something bad happens. Right. And then you switch to a narrative system. Oh, no. Yeah, no failures, but lots of advantage and a triumph. Oh, all right, then. Let's deal with that.
Forces you to think outside the box.
Definitely.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think it made me realize that I'd gotten lazy.
Yep.
I admit
I'd gotten complacent.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
It's easy to just go, okay, you failed, move on, next person.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, next question we have is what or who inspired you to begin writing freelance and why?
Wow. So actually my mom originally, sadly she passed before seeing any of my work published. She was a fellow nerd, very cool lady, so much so that my friends growing up called her Yoda. So
Nice. Oh, that's great.
but actually it was my players at first who said, dude, you need to write this down. And then people who took the time, who were actual writers, took the time to cultivate my skill and help me hone my craft. So it's been my fellow writers over the last couple of years.
Oh, so. Cool. So the next one here has to deal with the Foundry. Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to contribute? Either create a new setting, modify an existing one, or create an adventure or anything? Any advice?
Yeah, so do your research and playtest. And have somebody proofread your work. Those are really key. Take the time to put out quality work. There's a lot of great things going out there, but take the time to put it out there and do something fun, something that you think is fun, because it'll show in what you write. And so that's probably the best advice I could give is, choose a subject that is fun to you, that's fun to your players, that you can play test, and then find somebody else in the industry willing to, like myself or other people who are willing to take the time to help you. So it's great. I guess the best part is I would say making sure that that you take the time to run your ideas by different groups of people.
Right.
So not just your home group.
Right.
Yeah.
and people who may not fit your normal profile for gaming.
Right. Some people you may not know who have different experiences, different points of view.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea. Actually, I do that with my wife now and again. She's not a gamer. And every once in a while, I'm just like, hey, honey, answer me this. If I do this, what would you think? And she's just like, okay, what's this for?
It's a trap.
Exactly.
Okay, and so to follow all that with, more specifically dialing it down, Terrinoth, it's an established campaign setting. They have story hooks everywhere in that book.
Yeah.
Any specific advice for Terrinoth?
Yeah, so when there's so much great information in the Realms of Terrinoth and in some of the board games that they put out previously, and I've seen a lot of really great stuff go out there, is just make sure that if you're writing for Terrinoth, it fits the vibe, the style of writing of the world. And by that, I mean, if you read a lot of the short stories they put out and even some of the historical stuff they put in the book, if you can kind of find that voice and put your own spin on that within that kind of voice, I think you're really going to, people will get that as they read what you're doing. They're like, oh yeah, this sounds like Terrinoth instead of, it sounds like some other fantasy I've seen before. So,
right.
So as long as it helps if it seems like it belongs in the setting.
Cool. Want to take the next one there, Stefan?
Yeah, sure. When it comes to world building, have you done a lot of that? And if so, what kind of advice would you give to our listeners?
That was a listener question, by the way.
Oh gosh, yes. I don't know a GM or aspiring GM or writer who hasn't created their own world. And I always love getting with GMs and hearing about their little custom world that they've ran their players through.
Nice.
In reality, isn't that what we do? Basically, when we come together, is we create something new from something stagnant. So, I mean, we're all really world building. I guess the biggest advice is, again, just write what you love, because, and then just take the time to put in to make it kind of quality work. I really, there's a lot of great stuff out there that I'd love to see some people put out for Terrinoth and for Fantasy Realms. I've seen a lot of great stuff already out as well. So
cool.
Yeah.
Write all the time. Write as much as you can.
Right.
The only way to learn how to write is to write.
So true.
All right. Well, this next question comes from your buddy Keith Capel. Wants us to ask you about the 4 F's of writing. What could those 4 F's mean there, Darren?
Well, just to give, for people who didn't listen to the Keith Capel interview episode, there might be a couple of you out there. Keith, those are actually something that Darren asked us to ask Keith for the show.
Oh, that's right.
Keith on the show said, well, I'd love to hear Darren's take on them, because he's got some interesting ideas. So,
all right. Refresh us. What are the 4 F's?
So, a little background. So, the AWA, the Adventure Writing Academy, another shameless plug, our amazing teachers, Maggie and, of course, Keith, talked about the how to make resumes for game companies. And his original 4 fucks theory was, you tell the person who you're writing what the fuck this is, who the fuck you are, how the fuck you're qualified, and why the fuck should I hire you?
Right.
Nice.
And I loved those. I thought those were amazing. So I decided to take those into class and create a Darren's writing formula that I've stolen from the Keith's 4 fucks. So when you're writing your adventure, these are the 4 questions you should ask yourself, which is, what the fuck is this adventure about in your synopsis? So when you're introducing your adventure, what is this about? Because that's all I really want to know about initially. Who the fuck are you or we talking about in this story? Like, who are your players? When the fuck does this happen? Or how the fuck does it fit into the timeline?
All right.
Right.
And then finally, why the fuck would the PCs or readers be motivated or care?
That's always a big one.
Very nice.
So I took those, and that's actually how I wrote Haedra's Shard, as I read those 4 about every paragraph or 2 and thought, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll get into those 4 fucks then here in a little bit then about that adventure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Now, is there...
Great.
Sorry, from Michael Miklashin, one of our most prolific questioners.
I'm glad you got that. You were the one that say that last name.
Yeah, because I'm the only one that can say his name right.
Yeah.
Miklashin. I don't know. Stefan probably could say it right. He's just been sitting over there with his French, like, I'm not talking to you.
Because that's how Stefan sounds.
As I twiddle my mustache in an evil way.
There you go.
Nightly whiplash up there in the Great White North.
I wish I had a mustache.
I wish I could grow facial.
I know you're
hair.
rocking that shin beard there.
Yeah, the little goatee or semi-goatee or Van Dyke. I don't know what they call
I got a ball throw, put you all to shame. I'm just saying. But
Nice.
anyhow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, this question. Is there anything about the Genesys system that is unique to write adventures or content for? Specifically, meaning, have you written anything else or for others, or is it all just Genesys for you?
I have. I've had a couple of opportunities to write for others. I've written for 5th Ed D&D. I tried to work on a project for Savage Worlds for a short period. I love Savage Worlds. It's really great. I know where this is Genesys, but appreciate that. And there, I do a lot of. I've done a lot of collaborative writing with other groups, and you will be seeing some of those showing up on the Foundry.
Cool.
I unfortunately can't tell you anything about them, but they're really cool. As far as what would be unique to write adventures or content for, was that the question?
Yeah, what's unique if you're writing for the Genesys system? What's unique? If there's anything unique.
If there is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough Terrinoth adventures. That's just a complete bias, which is the reason why I'm writing these adventures.
That's great. I agree.
I believe you guys did an episode on comparative fantasy for Genesys. And I don't remember who, but the reason why these adventures were made were because of this podcast, because somebody had posed, I think it might have even been a question like, can you do dungeon crawls in Genesys?
Yeah.
And and apparently somebody did not believe so. And I thought, I'm going to prove them wrong. So actually the reason why I wrote the Terrinoth adventure is because of some people who kind of challenged that. So,
nice.
But I would love to see some more Weird War, like Chris Hunt's Weird War. I think that's a really fascinating kind of genre.
Cool.
Yeah.
And with Keyforge announced and coming out, I would really love to see some unique adventures based off of that. I think that would be really cool to see.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. And I've actually run a dungeon crawl in the Star Wars system, so it's doable.
Oh, heck yeah, it was.
Nice.
Because I ran one for you guys with the Sith Temple. That was a dungeon crawl.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah.
And then the cave, the Yeti cave, and your Cobb adventure a couple years ago.
Wampa Cave?
The Wampa Cave.
Cave.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was a dungeon crawl too.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a huge, under mountain adventure. Because it's not, Genesys and some other systems are not focused on, all magic items and hit points and spell slots.
Exactly.
In this case, it's strain and...
It's funny you say that because my experiment was 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons put out a box set called Dragon Mountain.
Oh.
Right.
Which I converted for Genesys.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So, and that was actually my test bed before I finished Haedra Shard.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Because that was also like one of those mega dungeon, maps kind of things. I've played the old Temple of Elemental Evil when I was first starting out with playing role-playing games. And sometimes, I'm trying to go back into it. I tried to be a GM or DM in this case, for some other friends, and no, it just didn't get into it.
I wonder how Tomb of Horrors would go
thing.
if you ran Tomb of Horrors in Genesys.
I don't mind any of those, so long as no one ever makes me go through Strahd's castle again. Fuck that.
Awesome.
Michael had more questions.
He does.
Stefan, you want to take the next one?
Sure. Let's see. What is your favorite community-made Genesys custom rule?
Wow, that's putting me on the spot because I there's a lot of great house rules out there, and it's like choosing your favorite kid in front of the other kids. I would say
you have to choose.
You have to choose, or else they all die.
Wow,
I'm just
awesome.
going to throw this out there. Sanity rules.
Went dark quick. I would say group skill challenges, where you have a number of successes before failures, is a great way to use to get through montages and speed up what can be long crawls. Sometimes, especially for con games or timed games. I think.
Yeah.
By far, that has been a community rule that has been used by multiple GMs to great effect. So,
Tony
it's
uses
part of my
it
bread and butter. I use them all the time.
Oh yeah. Sometimes we look forward to them. It's like, come on, let's do a group challenge.
Absolutely.
Can we just take a break and do a skill challenge? No more combat, Tony. No, just
So with that, this might be kind of maybe a little bit of a follow-on. But what do you think makes Genesys special and revolutionary? It's because we can add rules like this so easily, and they're so useful. Or what? What do you think?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, just the sheer bolt-on ability of and simplicity of the narrative system, the narrative dice system. There's so many axes of possibilities. Mm-hmm. Everything old is new again, which is really exciting. And even the same adventure I mean, you guys run con games all the time, which is the same adventure run by different groups of people with that dice and mechanic is completely different every time, which is what makes playtesting the adventures when you write them so great, because every adventure is new.
Yeah. I mean, I play tested one of my con adventures, ran in one direction, then brought it to these guys at Con Nakab and took it to a whole new level and completely different scenario. It was great. I think it's great. Yeah.
Said depending on the players and the dice rolls, like, okay, we have to deal with this now.
Right.
Yeah, they keep you on your toes.
That's right. Or somebody getting double despairs.
That's it. Or just learning that, oh, wait a minute, I can spend story points to add to the narrative. Oh, let me just add this. And
oh my gosh, what Harrison was doing to you, Tony.
Yeah.
That one game.
Oh yeah, well, he
Which
got
was
his
brilliant.
teeth a bit in my game before that, a couple of days before the first game in Genesys. Like, wait a minute, I can use that? Story points? Really?
So just to add context, I had a player that just decided every time he spent a story point, it was a flashback.
Yeah.
And he would do these long narrative flashbacks as to, him and the commander were roommates and they both had sex with the same chick, and that's why he's getting
a boost
upgrade, because I just tell him about, remember Becky? And he gets an upgrade. It's like, okay, all right.
He would do the same thing for me just to explain what piece of gear he had. Oh, my paladin has manacles because of this. All right, fine. They're very special manacles. They're shiny manacles.
Those British, man, they keep you on your toes.
Yeah. Nice.
So this one's kind of a... he wrote this question long before we all knew what the short-term future of Genesys is. But he says, how do you see the system evolving in the short and long term, both mechanically and community-wise?
Yeah, with recent news, that's a little bit more nebulous. Short-term, mechanically, I think there will be quite a bit of catch-up to the new expanded player's guide. As far as the system, I hope that there's going to be new waves of writers. We've already kind of seen a second wave bringing in new content. I fully expect to see a third wave. And I really want to encourage there to be a third wave, because just because things are uncertain now, I think as the system evolves and as we see more great ideas, I think we're going to get more people inspired. Mechanically, it's in a pretty solid state for now. Long-term, mechanically, I think like any system, it can evolve. It will evolve. Obviously, the Expanded Player's Guide is a great example, as we've got the power levels and things now.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be how the system evolves more. I think we're going to see more worlds open up. Especially now with things being uncertain, a lot of people might be more encouraged to write instead of wait for FFG to put out the content.
Right. I'm wondering if there's going to be some mechanic related to in the Keyforge setting coming out.
Oh, there's stuff in there. They've already kind of teased.
Well, I'm wondering if there's
I'm
wondering if there's a mechanic that they're going to add to that, if they've already, you know what I mean? That would bring, I don't know, a dwarf from Terrinoth to a android hacker from Shadows of the Beanstalk together, and how do they play together if there are?
Hey! They don't need it. We're doing it for Tales of the Epsilon Eclipse. So back off, buddy.
That's right. Or we could just go to an MMO and play an MMO, right?
Because I guess there won't be a Genesys second edition. Not officially, so it'll evolve maybe through organic, everyone adding their own little thing.
Yep.
And this is my house rule. What do you guys think? This is what we use in our game. I'm sharing it. Like the skill challenges. Well, that's cool. Tack on. You can easily go into it.
Yeah, I think new rules, just like anything, should be carefully tested. But I've heard you guys a lot of times on this podcast talk about don't reinvent things, don't overthink it. And some of the best rules out there are ones that are really simple, that fit that narrative. So I hope to see more of those.
Yep.
I look forward to that.
Just as an example, I'm converting Dragonstar to Genesys, and sometimes I'm just
Clap, clap.
When I'm looking at the gear or whatever rules, like when I was looking at data pads and scrolls and how to create spell books with data pads, because that's something that they talk about in Dragonstar, when it was 3rd edition. All right, I need to be able to adapt that to Genesys, but I don't want to make it complicated. I don't need
That's
to.
when
Just
Chris and I get an email.
Yeah, just
Exactly.
adapt it and see. These are my sounding boards.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it too complicated? Is it okay? I mean, it may still need to be play tested, and that might be one of our actual plays we'll do later this year.
Cool.
When it'll be my turn to GM, I'm already thinking up some things
Good.
for that actual play. So
Sweet.
yeah, sometimes I started writing stuff like, oh wait, way too complicated. Scale it back.
That's right.
Okay.
So let's see.
All right, so we've
ahead.
got a whole slew of questions that are specific to Haedra Sharp, but we want to keep them spoiler free. So I didn't add any of those where people asked for spoiler questions, which there was one, and I answered it. So because it was
Nice.
well, if you just read this part here, it'll explain that to you. Oh, duh.
All right.
So
There we go.
go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sure. So
Or who's
so
after me? I'm sorry.
I have no
Stefan.
idea. Stefan, go ahead.
Me? Okay, fine.
Or Darren
If
can
you-
pick.
I've been drinking. I can't help it.
All right. Give us your elevator pitch for this adventure. Roughly 3 or 4 sentences. We're about to get off the elevator, so go. Damn.
All right. So yeah, if that elevator is going to close that quick. So your PCs will find themselves in an isolated hamlet of Strangehaven in the Realms of Terrinoth. You've been brought together by either Common Cause or one of the Adventure Seeds that they've been asked to find some missing townsfolk. Things are not as they seem in this dark fantasy, and the PCs must be wary or follow the fate of the townspeople. I've made the adventure to be a standalone game, but it can also be part of a jump off for a mini campaign or a major one.
Maybe like
Cool.
a three-part adventure.
Nice.
Almost like it was made for that.
Oh my! So would this be considered an adventure for? This isn't one of the questions, but is this Is this like a starting level or starting experience point, earned XP experience point adventure? Or
That's a good question. So when I play tested it, I play tested it both with beginning characters, just straight
zero
new characters,
XP. Gotcha.
and the pre-gens. In the adventure,
How many XP do the pre-gens have?
they have 100 earned XP.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and I thought that was a great. I tested both ways because in the adventure you'll actually get advice from the adventurers, basically saying if your group has about X XP, or if this is how far they are, then up the level of what your combatants are.
That's always
And
nice.
since I'd already been part of the playtest for the expanded player's guide, I already kind of had a chance to hone some of those in, so that was kind of nice to have that in advance.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah,
Cool. Now, you did say this is more of a gothic kind of setting. This next question is, any suggestions for running the adventure for more of a generic fantasy or a horror setting?
yeah. The biggest piece of advice is avoid graphic violence if you can, and go for drama, like to build up the tension. I think also the best kind of horror or fantasy is believable. It's something that is just off center, but just enough that it's believable. And then if you're gonna be in a kind of a gothic or a horror setting, is make sure you're using all your senses. What are they seeing? What are they smelling? What are they hearing? What do they taste? All of those things, and then possibly a vibe, that fifth sense.
Right, that cold sense of something like breathing on your neck, or
Definitely.
Very nice.
Cool. Great.
Right.
Great advice.
So-
Great advice.
You've provided in the adventure. You've provided several hooks, or ideas on how to get the players started. And any favorites? Any new ones you'd like to throw out there for GMs that maybe looked at those 5 or 6 and went, "That's not for my group."
So my favorite is, I believe it's Revenge. A dark-robed wizard hired the PCs to guard or smuggle several wagons past the alderman patrols. However, the PCs were double-crossed and left for dead or not paid.
Nice.
It's funny because I ran a one-off game of that adventure. I actually turned that into a mini adventure. And ran that recently for my players, and they were like, "Wait, this is the preamble." I'm like, and they had to act like they did not know who they were dealing with.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's great.
They're like, "Wait, no, but that's." I'm like, "Well." So it was.
Congratulations, Mr. Tarantino. Good job.
That's great. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the night, you're going to be left for dead, by the way. If you didn't figure that out. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it just gave them greater motivation. They're like, "Where's part 2? Right now."
Nice.
But to answer your question, any new ones? I have a new one coming in part 2. I did rehash some of them just simply because a lot of them still fit. I reworded a few of them. However, in part 2, I have one specific to a species, dwarves. I actually have a dwarven only adventure seed if you're a dwarf.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm also creating uses for runecasters that doesn't involve actual casting.
Nice.
As a little
Interesting.
little teaser there.
Good, because, I mean, being a rune caster starting out, you don't get a rune to start. The only time you could, unless you get a GM where you're like, can I take the signature weapon ability so I have a rune and then you can use it while it's active? Because it's becoming active for that moment while you're, you gotta, if you got an open-minded GM, it's like, yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Nice.
Well, and strictly speaking, just because you don't have a rune doesn't mean, or a shard doesn't necessarily mean you can't rune cast if you find runes.
Right.
Which is funny because that kind of falls into languages. Anybody who's read part 1 knows that I actually, it's not strictly speaking talked about in Genesys or the Terrinoth book, as far as like, this is the languages your character knows.
Yeah.
So I'll be covering that in part 2.
Vague. Yeah, it's left pretty vague.
Nice.
What was in? Go ahead, Stefan.
Who's next? Stefan.
I think Stefan
I'll
is.
say. Yeah, I'll go next. So, have any plans on rehashing the adversaries with the new adversary challenge ratings that the expanded player's guide came up with?
I am planning on doing that, but in the interest of trying to get part 2 out first, I'm gonna probably do that last for part 1.
Right.
But part 2 and 3 will have those included. To include those into part 1 actually changes the entire layout. And if you've ever worked on InDesign or PDF layout, when you insert more things into a perfectly situated document, it doesn't just like, it's not something you can just slap in there unless you're like Guillaume or Scott, who can do it with their eyes closed.
You have to almost have to be a savant at it, right? Like them.
Yeah, it takes time for me. So, but I was planning to eventually do that. But since I was lucky enough to be in the expanded players test, I had the benefit of seeing the adversary creation process evolve. And so my first module, like I had said before, I had approximated the number based on a beginning campaign or somebody with at least 100 earned XP. So
Okay.
So I haven't gone through that. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that. So you've gone through creating adversaries with what they have in the expanded player guide. I haven't. Is there any advice you want to give anybody about related to that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. They're pretty good guides, but once you start comparing the power levels to creatures in other books, you may not see the kind of strict fitting in the box that you might have seen before this. I think back to our question of, how is it evolving? I think Genesys is evolving into more of a formulaic as far as adversary creation, whereas before it was a little bit more of a, here's how you do it in the main Genesys core rulebook. This is the range.
Okay.
And so now it's getting more specific. So I would say, yes, use that guide as best as possible, but also understand that when we create adversaries, the point is adversaries break the rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, bad guys cheat. That's why they're bad guys.
Right. and some of the best creatures are the ones that are that kind of break the rules in a weird or fun or interesting way. So stick to the rules, but also know when to break them. So, and then playtest them so you know if they're too broken.
Cool.
Right.
Cool. Great. All
Well,
right. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, the next question was answered already. Is this part 1 of a series, and are there more on the way? So that's already been answered. Obviously, you've got a 2 and maybe a 3 on the way.
Yeah, you even said part 3. So,
So I guess this is not really spoilerish, but it's kind of a spoiler. I had a question that I didn't put on here. Haedra's Shard. So I've read through the entire adventure, and naming it Haedra's Shard on the very first one, and you don't really talk about that at all in the adventure, in the first adventure.
what? No shard? No
It's
Haedra?
not really mentioned. Is that like a precursor to make people go, why wasn't it even mentioned? Did you do that on purpose, or did you just kind of, I've got a name for the whole path, and I want to just name the first one after the whole path? Or
It's interesting you say that. Actually, if you read in the what is past section, they talk about Haedra's Shard. They talk about the artifact. So I introduce it there as consider it a big steaming bowl of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. The entire title is based on Terrinoth is all about runes and rune shards and things like that. So I really wanted to have something that even the title felt like it fit in Terrinoth.
Gotcha.
And in the end, the whole point is to get Haedra's Shard.
Cool.
Right.
So
Finding it and getting it.
finding it and getting it, which could be a mini campaign just for your runecaster or people who want a shard. That was done on purpose.
okay.
Awesome.
That was the vindictive on purpose perversion of me putting that up there.
And then the other 3 adventures will be about having Haedra's Shard, preventing the bad guys from getting it, and destroying it, right?
There we go.
Or is that some other...
Sure, man. Let's go with that. I like that. Let's come over here and help me finish this. No. It's funny you say that about
Texas,
2 and
right?
3.
Dallas, Texas? All right.
Right.
Be careful. He'll
down.
come sit in your lap while you write.
Wouldn't be the first PC.
And that's a problem because...
I guess. I don't know.
That's true. But yeah, part 2 is actually in playtesting. It's in early playtesting and development still. I've already started trying to lay it out, which is great. Part 3, ironically, is completely outlined. I already have some major NPCs statted out. So once 2 hits, you're probably going to see 3 pretty close after.
Cool.
Because they're kind of tying into each other. And I want 2, just like 1, to stand alone, but I also want it so that it will drive you along that title that is on every adventure and to the next one. So, also a little teaser, or actually more of a thank you to all of the people who have already purchased Haedra's Shard. I commissioned Alex Pepper. He's an artist to do the town of Strangehaven and surround. He has finished it. He gave it to me, I think, last night or this morning. And I'm going to be putting that into Haedra's Shard and re-uploading it with some corrections and some addendums and little things like that. And so everybody who bought it should get an email or be able to go to DriveThruRPG and get an updated version of it. So they'll have a map. That's my way as a thank you. You will have a map of Strangehaven and the surround, thanks to the amazing work of Alex Pepper.
Very good.
Cool.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
There you go.
Very nice.
Yeah, you heard it here
Your
first,
eyes-
everybody.
Yeah, your eyes on your drive-through profile,
That's
RPG
right.
profile, and get a map.
All right.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Darren? I have one more.
Well, Chris Markham had a question, but it's pretty much answered, I think. He says, when is Haedra's Shard Part 2 going to be available? But when it's available, it's soon, I'm sure.
I'm very humbled and excited that so many people are looking forward to Part 2. So it's
Great.
kind of being a driving factor over the next month as I try to get that pushed out to everybody. So
Cool.
Don't rush it. Make it good.
That's right.
Yeah, because like movies, we don't want Part 2 to be less good than Part 1.
No pressure. No.
No pressure.
So, go
Star
ahead.
Wars.
Hey, don't go there. So that's a danger zone.
know.
But hey, if I get it into a place of playtesting, maybe we'll do a Finding the Narrative playtest of Haedra Shard Part 2.
Woohoo.
Cool.
We're down.
I'm
We'd
up for
be
that.
down for that.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
My last question was so for GMs who are trying to run this on a time schedule, you've got some notes in there, but what was your usual run times in your playtests for the adventure?
Well, my friends and players are a lot like you guys, so there's a lot of cutting up. So I had to time how much of that we were just goofing off and drinking. But
Never
it
do that.
ran.
We're serious. We're always immersed in our characters. What are you talking
Immersion.
about?
You're playing a character now, right?
Yeah.
So it ran. It
Not
ran
really
anywhere.
gay.
It ran 4 hours. It ran around 3:45 or 4 using the time savers that are in the adventure. However, when I ran it for campaign kind of games, I was able to draw it out for 2 to 3 different game sessions. Just because there's a lot to explore if you want it to be. And you can, I mean, just the adventure one can be 2. I've actually seen some people tell me they drew it out to 4 games. So that was pretty good.
How long are your game sessions normally?
4. I try to. We
4.
usually play 4. I usually schedule 30 minutes up front and then back because people want to usually catch up. And
Right.
Gotcha.
if they don't know the rules and they're new, I need to explain them, and then of course thanking everybody and getting feedback. So
Right.
Nice.
Cool.
Pretty cool.
Well, folks, if you haven't already picked it up, this should be enough of an enticement to go out and pick up Haedra's Shard. It's a great adventure. Darren did a good job. That's our opinion here at Finding the Narrative.
And there's more to come.
Absolutely. I'll have the link in the show notes for it. The link to the Drive-Thru RPG, and I will put in the link to the Adventures Writing Academy, because you participate in that, right, Darren? You're part of that, so I'll put that in there if anybody else wants to know. And then whatever else you want to give me, Darren, to throw in there, just you can shoot me an email and we'll throw some stuff in there.
sounds great. Thank you.
All right.
Personal address, your PIN number, whatever. No.
Bank account, routing number, blood type, favorite food.
Social security number, so I could send it to that count over or that prince over in, I don't know, the Middle East or something. Anyway,
Favorite color of underwear, whatever.
thanks, Stefan. All right, so let's move on to the next section.
There you go. Alright, so welcome to a very special Advantageous Threats. Since we have our special guest, Darren, we will be doing a little bit differently. Tony, instead, will be running us through a little scenario. We might be a couple of rounds. And this will be kind of a preamble to the Haedra's Shard. We will try not to expose any spoilers for the adventure. So we've picked 3 characters from the pre-gens that Fantasy Flight Games, has published. And Tony, what are we going to do? Why are we adventuring Give us some motivation.
Why the fuck are we adventuring?
Yes,
right?
why the fuck are we? Why do we
All
fucking
right.
care?
So you three have been traveling for several days. You're hoping to reach the small town of Strangehaven by nightfall. It's said to be the last known whereabouts of a bounty that you're searching for, that you've been asked to carry out on a wizard named Galantis.
Mm-hmm.
Galantis is wanted for murdering a priest of Kelos in the free city of Forge. And so that's where we're at. Let's go through and introduce which characters real quick that you're playing. We'll start with Chris.
I am playing Leoric of the book. This little bastard is the one who... He's given us a bad reputation. So I'm grabbing these two to come with me. We need to go get this little fucker. All right, let's go. I don't know if that's what Leoric sounds like, but you know what? Sounds like it now.
That's what he sounds like today. Okay,
That's what he sounds
cool.
like it today. And he's cusses a lot, too, apparently.
Very nice. Darren?
I'm Thaden Misspeak. I find things, and right now we're finding our good friend Galantis, and we brought a wizard to find a wizard. So, yeah, I hope we find him soon, because I could sure use a drink.
I don't think he's our friend, though. He's a little bastard.
Okay. And Stefan?
I am Pathfinder Durek. These puny humans have hired me to find this puny wizard. They can't find their own ass in the forest.
Right,
Very
it
nice.
stinks out here.
All right, so...
You went this
You're-
way.
Right.
Good.
So the smoke from the chimneys in the small town can be seen in the distance as the road winds through the hills. As you round the base of a hill, you notice a small cart overturned on the side of the road and a pair of worn boots that are thrust out of the pumpkin patch nearby. And give you a little bit of atmosphere. You can hear the distant crows in the distance, kind of cawing quite a bit. And it's very blustery, windy day. There's tall weeds on the side of the road, and they're waving back and forth. An occasional group of leaves will flutter across the dusty road.
Alrighty then.
Are they nice boots? I'm going to go look at them.
Okay. They as you get closer, you notice they're fairly worn. They don't even bear a cobbler's mark upon them. They're old, worn shoes that probably worn the mark off. And there is a leg, just where you can see the one. There's a leg attached to it. The other one, there isn't.
Boots and pumpkin patch. That's a bad omen. Durek, not get close to that.
Now, one of the things that assaults your nose as you get close is this smell of some pungent odor you perhaps have smelled before, and after a second of thinking, you're like, that smells like apple cider.
Ooh.
Apple cider.
Well, you wanted
Might be.
a drink.
Yeah, I'm going to search his pockets for apple cider.
All right, so as you get close and you look down, the leg ends at the knee.
Uh-oh.
So no pockets. Now the cart is overturned, and now that you're on this side of the cart looking, where are the other two of you at?
I'm going to start investigating the cart.
Okay.
So is there an overturned apple cart? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we smell. The apple cart.
And
Nice.
the cart had several look like small kegs that have all cracked open and
Oh,
saturated the earth nearby with something.
Waste of good cider.
I agree.
And
Where's the rest of this guy?
just in the distance you hear, "Daddy! Daddy! Hello? Daddy!"
oh.
So, where is this
Must be.
coming from?
Durek thinks it's a trap.
Off in the weeds,
In the weeds?
in the direction that the leg is pointing. in that direction.
I
Should I warn him?
could. You know what? I'd like to call out. Over here, son.
Well,
Over
not
here.
right over here.
Somewhere.
Cover in.
Daddy, I can't hear you. Are you there?
Is there anything on the road, like a landmark, that I could tell this kid to kind of walk to? We can maybe go up the road a little bit, or
The weeds are so tall. Yeah, the weeds are so tall here that you don't. I mean, you just see them lining the road going down. Now you do see trees off in the distance, and like I said, the smoke. The town is generally just north of this location.
Okay. I'll go a short distance north so that I'm not. So I'm north of the body, so that if the kid comes to what I'm saying, won't necessarily see the body, and let these two to maybe, I don't know, cover.
Durik
like
jumps
you said,
on the back.
cover it up.
Durik jumps on the back of the wagon. It's upturned to have a better vantage point and looks where the voice seems to be coming from.
And I guess Thaden will try to head the kid off. He tried to save him the trauma of just seeing Daddy's.
So you're
Stump.
entering the weeds?
Yes, Thaden is.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm going up the road a little bit.
Where are you, child?
And
Child, come out.
Dirk, I'd like you to make a perception check, please.
Dirk.
And this will be an average perception check.
All right, perception. Where has he got his perception at? There we go. All right, 2 ranks. And that is based off of his, there we go, cunning. All right, not bad, a cunning of 3, so there we go.
Now, the wind is blowing, and your friends are also kind of shouting to the child, so I would like to throw in 2 setback dice there for that.
Okay, and you said average difficulty?
Yes, sir.
All right, and 2 setback. All righty, there we go. Roll that out. All right, so those cancel a couple of successes. Do we have a couple of successes left? Yes. 2 successes and 1 threat after all of that.
Okay. So, as
Squint.
As Thaden enters the weeds, you listening, and you hear the voice of the child. The first time it calls out Daddy, it's off to your left. And then second time you hear it calling out Daddy, it's a little to your right. Probably 30 yards apart, 30 paces apart.
All right. So I'm directing Thaden. No, that direction. No, the other right now.
Thaden, I'd like you to make a vigilance check.
Oh, okay.
Child's moving too fast.
Thaden is not trained in vigilance, so that is just going to be 3 dice. Just a
Oh, no, it's going to be with let me hang on here.
Yeah, a simple check. No difficulty, please. We all know what that is.
I don't think so.
Wasn't sure if it was initiative is what I was concerned about.
No, actually, and you don't have to roll this. This is going to be 2 purple, 2 red.
2 purple, 2 red. Vigilance check. That's amazing. All right.
You sure you want to kill off the guest's character right
This is
off?
the start of the adventure. Just so you know, we don't have them sitting here, but the story point situation is 3 players, 1 GM, so 3 to 1.
Right. All right, here we go. Wow. Okay. That is amazing. That is going to be 2 success, but 2 threat.
Oh,
That's pretty amazing for 3 green dice.
that doesn't
All right.
suck.
Yeah.
At this point, before I reveal the narrative of this roll, everyone go ahead and roll a vigilance check with
Of course.
0 difficulty, aka.
Right.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. 1 and 1. Pardon me. All right. 2 advantage. 0.2.
0.2. Got it.
1 and 3.
Cool.
So 1.3. And Chris?
You slow motherfuckers.
Yep.
3.2.
3.2. All right.
And I will gladly let somebody who might or might not be in the weeds take that first initiative slot if you'd like.
So
And who acts first?
Exactly.
the thing that so you notice it right as it pulls taut on your leg. There is a vine that has wrapped itself around your leg, winding upward from the ground, and it is going to pull you.
All right.
So it's actually it's a very
Pulling
thorny
blade?
vine. So actually, once it grabs, it's kind of wound up your leg, and then it's going to pull tight. So this will be a brawl check.
Nice.
So I have 2 yellow and a green. Do you have any defense?
Apparently he rolled higher than 3, too. Oh my.
Yep.
Normally he would have defense if his sword was out, but he doesn't have his sword out.
Okay. Alrighty then. So I'm going to throw in a setback die for the fact that it cannot see its target. It is reaching out. So,
Sweet.
and that's
And touching somebody.
setback die actually led to a little bit of failure there. So,
Woohoo.
but so 1, 2, 3, 4 failures. So net of 1 failure, 3 advantage. So while it has not grabbed tightly onto you, its leg, or it's a leafy vine of some kind, and so instead of pulling onto you, it kind of, when it goes to pull, it reaches over and grabs a hold of your other leg and starts twining around that. Okay, you're kind of ensnared with 3 advantage.
All right.
Guys,
Well, if
Now,
you
I
wanted
would
the
say
first
because-
initiative, yeah.
So this is what you see, the other 2 of you.
So
So
we do see him.
you see movement in the weeds away from Thaden, Jurek. You see something orange and green. And same thing for you you've gone just a little bit down the road, Leoric. In fact, since you did so well on your vigilance check, you actually see what looks like a pumpkin just slightly rise above the weeds for a second and then slink down.
Ah. Okay. But it's hidden by the weeds still.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So first player, go ahead.
Right, well, since you're the one caught in the vines,
If you'd like
Okay.
to, feel free.
okay. So Thaden is more than a little bit shocked. However, he's going to draw his short sword and hack at the vines that are trying to wrap around his very nice boots.
Okay.
not my designer boots.
These were a gift to me by the Czarina of Talamir.
Well, there we go.
Okay, so that would be a melee light check, and he has finesse. That's pretty exciting.
Nice.
So, what is my difficulty, GM?
It is going to be average difficulty, since it's a melee attack, and the individual creature you're fighting does not have any defense. So, no need
Is
to
it
add
an
that.
adversary?
It is. Don't see a talent of adversary 1. I don't. Nope.
Excellent. Since it doesn't look like I'm going anywhere, I'm going to really kind of put my back into my swing. So I would like to spend my maneuver to second maneuver to do that. Take a couple strain if I could.
Excellent. Sounds great.
My aiming did me 0 good. Okay, we have a net 1 failure.
Okay. So as you kind of chop at the vines, your sword just kind of hits them and kind of bounces off, as they're really tough.
Oh my.
Thing's not even sharp.
Maybe you hit it with the flat end.
Yeah.
That's right. Hit it with the
poking
pointy
the
end.
It's still in the scabbard, stupid human.
Why didn't I think of that?
Okay, so this thing is this other one has over by you, Leoric.
Yep.
the one that's close to you, you see it. It just all of a sudden it comes out of the weeds. The weeds part. What you see is a strange-looking pumpkin with kind of a face carved on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes, "Daddy!" and it reaches out for you.
Oh, fuck.
And it's got real thorny vines coming out. They don't look like normal pumpkin vines. They have these just nasty looking sharp thorns on them.
Oh, was it like short range? It's kind of can reach out and do that? Or does it come right next to me? Okay, short range, okay. I do have a defensive one.
A defensive one? Okay.
And, yeah. All right.
Anything else?
Nah, roll them up.
All right. Oh, it's it moved it. I dropped the die. Enjoy it, cat. So yeah, I had to pick up another yellow die here, proficiency die. So I'm not going to aim because it used its maneuver to get close to you. So
got it.
Okay, I did not roll a single success. Just a crud load of advantage here.
Woohoo! Sounds
so
good.
when it reaches out with its vine to grab you,
Yep.
it just grabs a hold of your robe and
Okay.
causes you to trip up, and you fall face first into the weeds.
Oh.
I was hoping you'd say it disrobes him.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Ripped
Not
them.
yet.
Oh, damn it.
And he's not wearing any underwear.
Yeah. Yeah, Leoric goes commando underneath his robes for sure.
Yeah.
So instead of Leoric of the book, it's Leoric of the buff.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, dude. Watch out.
Or it could be Leoric of the women's panties. You never know.
There we go. All right.
It's a thong.
Then,
I try not to judge.
then may I go next? Is there a PC slot
There are
next?
2 players.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Alrighty then. It's all right. So then I'll stand back up. I'll take 2 strain
Uh-oh.
to aim an arcane spear at this thing and try and skewer this pumpkin with the arcane spear.
You're going to carve the pumpkin?
Yes. So I'm going to have to take 4 strain on this one. Oh, fudge nuggets. All
Now,
right.
while it is at short range, it does have you, like, right there with all those vines coming out at you.
Yep.
So
setback?
it's basically right within the reach. Yeah, I would go ahead and give you a setback die for that.
Okay.
If you're casting, as their vines are
All right.
waving in your face.
Sweet.
It may interrupt your somatic components.
Yeah, in my face. You know what? I'm going to spend one of these story points because I am in the buff. And, you know, I don't have the wedgie, so it doesn't really matter. But I am ready to spear this pumpkin. So I got 4 yellow, a blue, 2 purple, and a setback die. You want to do anything to that there, Tony?
No, I like it for now.
You like it for now. Okay.
Yeah, your arcane
fine.
spear is a regular.
You're trying to impress it with your eggplant there?
No. All right.
Gherkin.
So we're going to do... So
It's cold out. It's a gherkin.
Nice.
Cool.
So my aiming did shit. Let's see. So I've got 1 advantage, 2 successes, and a triumph.
Nice.
He is triumphantly successful, which is going to be 10 damage
All right, so
it's
10 damage.
to the pumpkin.
Got it. So
And-
the spear, just on the damage alone, hits this thing,
Yep.
and you see just blows the side of the pumpkin off. Just
Okay.
the face is in half. The pumpkin pieces go flying every which direction. That's just on the damage side alone.
That's just the damage side. Now I am going to spend
Pumpkin
this.
spice.
I'm going to spend the triumph because I have a talent here that allows me to roll 2 to add 2 boost dice to the roll,
Okay.
and I'm going to spend a triumph on that.
Hopefully
Ooh.
get some more successes and add more damage.
Nope. Actually, that adds 3 advantage or 3 more advantage. So I have 4 advantage right now. I
Very
have
nice.
a crit rating of 2. So I'm thinking I might. I'm going to spend 2 of those to crit this thing,
Okay.
and I'd like to pass the other 2 to the vines. The other guy that's got Darren's character. What was your character's name, Darren? I'm sorry.
Thaden.
Maybe there's some sort of... Maybe it will help him, give him a boost die on his check that he's going to do. Maybe it distracts the one that he's fighting when he hears his buddy.
Let's say the scream of its partner.
There you go.
It will possibly unnerve it and give it setback dice or give him a boost. Which is it?
A boost die to
him.
Yeah.
So
and then I'm gonna roll. Then I'll roll a crit, and because this thing is, I got deadly put on it, I'm gonna add 30 to this roll because I got vicious 3 on it.
Nice.
That'd be a 98 plus 30 is 128, sir. I don't have my DM screen.
128.
128, yeah.
Holy cow! Wow. Okay, so that's a gruesome injury. Roll a d10.
Awesome. Yeah, it was gruesome. I blew half its face off. A 10. Oh. Hit his presence. Hit him in the presence.
It's been unrooted.
Willpower.
It's been uprooted.
What was it? Sorry.
Roll a 10.
10 is willpower.
Yeah, his will's
All right,
gone.
so
Gone.
it's willpower. All right, so this thing just crumples.
Nice.
With a 0 willpower now. It just crumples to the ground and is laying there just whimpering in pain.
Sweet.
It's the vines are curling in on itself.
Oh, good.
It's curling into a safe ball. It doesn't want to be bothered.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right.
Your turn, you smelly savage.
That's
Go.
it.
Do something useful.
Go for crumple stillskin or...
Didn't Durik say boots and pumpkin patch is bad omen? Yes, he did. No one listens to Durik. Could I get there in a maneuver to help Thaden?
Yes. Thaden, yes. You can just leap off the top of the apple
I'll
cart.
do that.
Right there with the single.
Durik's job again to save the puny human's life. Jumps off. Takes the other maneuver to draw his dagger. And he's got a spear in the other hand.
Leaping draw. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
For that, I will grant you a boost die before you ask for it, whore.
Excellent. Excellent. There we go. And he leaps over and will hack at the vines, which, by the way, having grown pumpkins last year, actually, pumpkins do have thorny kind of vines.
Yeah, but they don't look as bad as these thorns.
No,
I thought you were-
but they're still prickly.
I thought you were leading into another boost die ask.
No.
Because Darren has his own,
Just some
has his own
some
pumpkin
agriculture
patch.
knowledge. All right, so and I will hack and slash at these vines.
Nice.
So melee light. There we go. So 2 and 2. No, 3. Got two yellow, 1 green.
Now,
Go.
because you're leaping into the weeds and you cannot see the ground you're leaping onto, I
Yeah.
would also like to give you basically some uneven ground, so setback die, please.
1 setback dice, no problem, and it's average difficulty.
If anybody's ever gone through a farmer's field, there's holes everywhere. Rocks.
Yeah.
They don't move that stuff. They just go around it.
Well, that's it. No, I live in the country, so yeah, sometimes you have to have careful where you put your feet in. It's like, whoops, divot here. It's like, oh, now it's a little higher. All right. And what the hell? After engaging an enemy. Oh, let's do the reckless charge. After engaging an enemy, I can suffer 2 strain to add 2 successes and 2 threat to the melee attack.
2 threat.
Wow.
That's great.
Nice.
So that's 2 more threat, 2 more strain, sorry. All right. And since his friend is an injury, I'll flip a story point to upgrade 1 dice again.
Oh, that was to a knowledge check. Oops.
All right, let's go. Okay, the boost dice was useless. This one cancels that. So I've got a total of 2 threat there, 2 advantage, or cancel there. 1 success. No, 2 successes and an advantage.
2 successes and advantage. Very nice.
So
So
that
damage?
would be a total of 7 damage.
Okay. So soak some of that.
Oh, sorry. I also had accurate. So just real quickly, I had boost dice, which gives you
no backsies.
Fine.
Just kidding.
Fine.
Roll it. You haven't gone on to the next person.
Well, I roll it. It's an extra advantage, so 2 advantage. Not enough to activate the crit, but I will give the next acting character a boost dice.
Sweet.
Or the bad guy's acting. Yeah, setback dice to the plants. There we go.
Okay, setback die to. Okay, so that plant.
As I'm hacking and slashing, it's all these blades are flying all over the place.
So when it attacked you the first time, it was doing so stealthily from kind of a surprise position. Now it actually is going to go at the bottom of the round. And again, you also see this leering pumpkin face as it kind of pulls itself towards you. You can see the vines stretching out behind it almost as if they're rooted to the ground somewhere. But this pumpkin face is leering towards you and in the vines and is trying to pull you towards the face.
You guys can't see it at home, but Tony's actually going towards the camera to Darren.
Yes.
But yeah, Tony's a very animated GM. The fact that I have to sit down to GM bothers me so much at my computer.
I hear you, dude.
So you do have your sword out now. So
I
I will
do.
take that defense die and add it in there.
Alrighty.
Plus the lovely defense die that was given to me by my orcish savior.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, so I'm looking at just 2 purple. I think this one really wants to taste the adventurer here, so I'm going to spend one of my GM story points to upgrade.
Awesome. What's our pool at?
So we're back to 3 and 1.
3 and 1, yeah.
Are you happy with my pool?
Always.
Okay. Actually, you know what? The leering in, bringing you towards the face, that's kind of an aim.
There we go.
It is kind of an aim.
All right. So here we go. Ooh, there's a triumph.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
All right. So in this case, all my advantage is going to wash out. So I'm just going to have the success from the triumph and one other success. So 2 successes.
All right.
And we're looking at that's going to be 10 damage as the jaws just snap out and grabs onto your shoulder, and it feels like sharp fangs, like it's hardened. It's not really a piece of vegetable. It's something else.
Somebody sharpen those pumpkin seeds, man.
And with its bite, it's got a critical 3. I think I'll spend the triumph on a critical with vicious 2.
Ow.
So here we go.
Welcome to the show, Darren.
Absolutely.
83.
Next time, listen to Durek.
83 is going to be winded. The target cannot voluntarily suffer strain to activate any abilities or gain additional maneuvers until the critical is healed.
Oh,
Nasty.
Nice.
So it bit real hard down on your shoulder, knocks the wind right out of you when it does that. You're like, all right. That is round 1.
yeah, it is.
Round 2, first player. It's, by the way, the initiative slots are player, bad guy, player, bad guy.
All right.
Well,
Do you want to go, Chris?
no, I would say the guy that just got bit, if you'd like to.
Yeah.
But you know what I would like to do is use a once per session ability as Leoric, which is we're ready for adventure, motherfuckers! So why don't you throw that GM story point over to our player pool?
Okay.
So you can't mess with our guest on his chest.
All right. So now the story point pool
He's
sits
ready.
at 4 to the players and 0 to me.
Yeah, so feel free to use them. Use them if you got them then. All right, Darren, go ahead, man.
Excellent. So Thaden is going to take a page from Leoric of the book and draw his crossbow, his custom crossbow. Since it's right there, I'm just going to shoot it right in the face. So he grabs his signature weapon crossbow as his maneuver, and he's not going to aim, but his crossbow is a superior. So it's got his range. Thankfully, someone has already given me a boost die after seeing Leoric so definitely dispatch or damage his. And so my difficulty in melee with a crossbow is
2.
Okay.
I do believe.
I think so.
It should be 2 or 3. In this case, since it's got its vines wrapped around you too, I'm going to go ahead and make it 3.
Okay.
It'll be a hard check.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm also going to I'm going to spend 2 story points to trigger my my character's debts to pay secret ability, which allows him to, until the end of his next turn, adds a blue boost die to his checks, and his crossbow gains the Blast 5 quality.
Whoa.
Because he's not going to play.
He is not playing. Nope.
You just brought a shotgun to a wrestling match.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Assault shotgun.
Nice. Oh, nice. Okay. We are going to have 1 net success and 1 advantage. And since my weapon is superior, that would be 2 advantage.
There we go.
Very nice.
Woohoo.
I'm assuming that this creature is not undead. So, 2 advantage.
You are assuming that? You are?
Is this... Well, it's a pumpkin. Is it an undead creature?
This creature is treated as a form of undead.
Ah.
Oh, well, he has Wraithbane, which allows him to reduce the critical rating of the weapon by 1 when attacking an undead adversary.
Well, there we go.
So that will allow me to crit him and blast him, actually, with that lovely bit of information. So I'm going to crit him with the 1.
First.
The damage is going to be 10,
Okay.
Nice.
Soak some of that. All right, go ahead.
and then he's going to take Blast 5.
To the face.
Okay. And then go ahead and roll the crit for posterity's sake.
90.
Wow.
99.
Oh, 99.
High rolls on the crit chart tonight.
My new favorite dice.
Crippled. All right, so if it wasn't already dead, it would have been crippled. But you hit this thing right square in the head, like you kind of stick your crossbow right up into its face, you know, and you just pull the trigger and you activate the special. How does that
Ammo.
work?
Blast.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, yeah, he just keeps some special igniting ammo that just, when it hits the air, it ignites and blows up.
Nice.
Okay. And so this pumpkin just explodes. And bits
Pumpkin spice
of
everywhere.
goo go everywhere. Now, the first thing you notice when it explodes, and by the way, we're stepping out of combat now.
Okay.
First thing you notice when it explodes is that you're hit with a wave, a smell. It smells like rotten pumpkin and apple cider.
Apple cider.
Yes, and this greenish orange goo just hits the ground and hisses and
All right. Durek is standing there covered in that stuff. And he's got
maybe
his
a pumpkin
weapons there.
seed just kind of
got his weapons
sliding down his cheek.
He was getting ready to hack and slash, and he looks at Thane and is like, Durek hates it when you use that ammo.
Things explode.
Sorry about that, mate.
I've got
That's
a
what you
piece
always
falls.
say.
What piece falls right in front of Leoric's like, oh, good. Far away again. Far enough away yet again.
Yes, Lorik and chicken shit range again.
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
It is a short distance away from there that the three of you will find. And I'll just give you this because we're going to cut this short. But you inspect the thing. There would be clues here that lead to the adventure. Not going to say what those are. But then
not the spoiler.
they're nearby. You do find a man who has a peg leg on one leg. Has apparently lost it in a nasty thresher accident. And his other leg is torn off and he's bleeding, but he is alive.
Oh. All right.
And
And yes, he was wearing a boot on his peg leg.
Oh, great.
Because if you'd have picked the boot up and looked, there's a little wooden foot inside.
Oh, nice.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
That's
done.
it.
Nice,
Two
man.
short
Right on.
rounds. You guys made quick work of those guys. But it's supposed to be an introductory encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. So
I like
Nicely done. I like it.
advantageous threat there. Thank you, Tony, for running that.
Yeah.
Darren, I hope you had some fun.
That was great. You did a great job. That's Yeah, I'm going to steal that. That's awesome.
Awesome. Good.
Well, Tony's a pretty good game master when it comes to this kind of stuff and setting up interesting adventures and encounters. Very nice.
All right. Well, shall we...
He once wore a Wampa hat. So.
Yes, he did. Which is great. There are pictures on the internet of it
Yes.
somewhere.
That's
So it didn't happen. Yes.
That's right. There are pictures. It happened. All right. Well, let's go ahead and call this a night then.
That's it. So. All right. So we're going to wrap up this show. Thank you again, Darren, real quickly. I just want to do a little shout out to, in this case, since it's the start of a new year, it's the first show of 2020, to all the blogs and podcasts out there from the Nerds International network. So the RPG Brewery, well, the brewery, actually, the Wild Eye, which is on hiatus, but still.
But they've got a huge backlog. Go listen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, start at the beginning and go forward. Mm-hmm. The Murder Hobo Show, not safe for work, obviously. The 3TRPG, even less safe for work.
If they're listening to this show, I don't think they care about that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, Imaginary Ramblings, etc. So they've got quite a few blogs out there. We're on MeWe as well. So yeah, we're all a great bunch of guys and gals, a few gals at least, that game together. So check them out.
That's
Chris,
right.
is there anything else?
I don't think we have any reminders or events coming up here. I think I'd just turn it over to Darren if there's anything you want to plug. Thank you for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you again.
Coming. It's great.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was really great. You guys are awesome and freaking hilarious. Feel free to look up. That's amazing. Feel free to look up Haedra Shard on the Drive Through RPG. Be looking for part 2 coming out this, hopefully in the next few months. And be looking for some new content coming out from some people, some of the writers who've written for FFG in the past. So I think it's everything for Genesys and Fantasy Flight is far from over. So don't give up hope.
Yeah.
No, that's it. The community is still going. I mean, it's Genesys is a toolbox. It's a generic system. It's not just one specific system. So fans have been coming up with stuff since the beginning. So I think hopefully it will continue.
Definitely.
All right. So you can reach out to us at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. You can talk to Stefan and I. People do that occasionally. I don't know why, but on Facebook, it's at Finding the Narrative. You can get a hold of Nerds International and all of us over there. Our Finding the Narrative chat on MeWe. Chris, Stefan, and I, we're always on there. We're willing to talk. We have a Twitter presence, and Stefan monitors that like a hawk, and that's at FTN_Genesys. And tell your friends, family, listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, and more. So, Darren, you got a goodbye you want to say?
Remember to narrate before and after you calculate.
All right.
Awesome.
This is Tony saying, tell a great story and spend a story point.
Awesome.
Very good one. And this is me just, Stefan saying, of course, dare to ask for those boost dice. Come on, I dare ya.
And I say, remember the rule of cool, even if you're covered in pumpkin goo. And just have fun. Good night, everybody, and thanks again for coming on and sharing a night with us there, Darren.
Thank you, guys.
Adios.
There you go. I wasn't the only handsome one on the show this time.
But the most handsome one. Although I got to tell you, you got the Picard thing going on, man. The whole ball. That's a Picard thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
For Tony? Nice.
It's not really a choice.
Yeah.
Just it was the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, it can be blinding sometimes, you know.
I've turned the light down.
Yes.
That's right. Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. Copyright 2020, all rights reserved.